What's going on, everybody? It's Brian Trippe. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Live podcast. Today, I'm joined by Frank Iglesias. Frank, first of all, thank you for joining the program. Really appreciate it. Give everyone maybe a 30 or a 60-second rundown of your accomplishments, your resume. Tell everybody why you're qualified to give real estate investing advice or share your stories.
Okay, well, thank you for having me, Brian. Everyone, I've been on investing for over 15 years now. We have played heavily in wholesaling. We've played heavily in fix and flip of all sizes, from cosmetic to additions, pop the tops, tear downs, plenty of new construction, plenty of rentals, both short-term, long-term. Done some coaching. So we've been around the block. We've seen a lot of things.
So, well, Frank, when I hear someone say that, the first kind of thought that comes to my mind, and I know we're going to talk about simplification here. we're definitely going to talk about that because I've had that happen in my own life for sure. But when I hear someone list off, we've done this and we've done this and we've done this, we've done this, was it a progression for you? Was it we started doing this, then we switched to this, and then we grew to this, and then we grew to this? Or was it more like an add-on? We started here, and then we added this, and they added this, and added this. And how did that come to be?
It was a little bit of a mix. When we started, it was 2009, we bought our first house. And it was a buy, fix, and hold. And of course, back then, houses were real cheap, and we didn't know anything. We're like, oh, look, cool, a house for 50 grand. How cool is that? Like, we had no idea that the world was melting down around us. I was still in corporate America. That really was my focus. Real estate was a side thing. After we were in it for a little bit, I got into wholesaling, and that was a lot of fun, right? And that was, we were able to grow that, and that's really a fun part of the business. But we always did a little flipping and a little bit of buying and holding. So we kind of were in too many cookie jars at the beginning, but we didn't really realize it because I did like a rich dad, poor dad education. And they're like, yeah, buy a class. And I remember it was foreclosures, lease options, and wholesaling. So it was like they set you up, and I'm not trying to be critical, but they set you up to have multiple focuses rather than one. And I get it, it's a business, so I don't hold anything against them. But in retrospect, I wish we would have been deeper in just one.
Yeah.
And so we were playing in multiple spaces to various degrees. And then we started doing bigger projects, which turned into the additions. And then the additions then led to the new construction. Now, when the thing is, new construction is totally different from your typical real estate investing. It really is its own animal. People are like, it's so similar. It is not similar. There's a few overlaps, but it's really a different world. And because it was a different world, we got about a lot of projects, and it just sucked us in like a vacuum. To the point where I would joke in my office, hey, I'm not even an investor, I'm a builder. And I would say it jokingly, but the reality is it was true. I had sort of forgotten how to be an investor because I literally became a builder without even realizing it.
Right.
And so it was to answer your question, it was not super focused. We had our hands in too many cookie jars day one, and then we built off of that.
Let me go back to this rich dad thing because this is interesting that you said that. I got started in real estate in 2012, and I'm a product of rich dad education as well. That's how I got into it. And I might have done it a little differently. I think I signed up for the way it was structured, at least when I did it, is you signed up for like a package of classes. That's how it was when I did it. So right out of the get, like day one, and I don't even remember how much. I think it was 10 grand. I just did like the basic thing that they had to offer, and I got 2 classes. And I remember thinking that what you just said is that in retrospect, it looked like they might have set you up for failure because they've got you kind of doing a little bit of everything, or there's so many classes available that you can kind of take a lot of different things. I remember going to that wholesale class in 2012 and learning. I didn't even go to the class yet. I was signed up to go to the class, And since I was signed up for it, they gave me all of the online materials. And I was watching all the modules and learning it. And I went out 45 days after signing up with Rich Dad. 45 days later, I made $10,000. I did my first deal. So I like got my money back like right out the gate. And I'd already done like maybe 3 or 4 deals. And then I go to the class, and the class is like, obviously, everything that they just taught you, through the modules. And it's like, it's theory. It's a lot of theory. You need to go out and put the theory into practice. And so I just mastered wholesaling. And then it was like a year later, I took my second class, which was lease options. And I went out and I mastered it's almost like I added like another, tool to my tool belt. I went and added the lease option piece I was already doing the marketing, already had the leads coming in. Well, the folks that I couldn't wholesale the deal, we'd offer them a lease option. That's kind of how I did it. It looks like you probably did it a little bit differently. You were kind of doing them all like bang, 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 bang.
Yeah. So, the flips and the buy to keep and rent, those just sort of kind of went synonymous with each other. Here's a deal. Do you keep it? Do you flip it? Kind of thing. The lease options it was not something we got heavily into, but we did come across some deals where it made sense. In retrospect, I wish I'd done more of those, because those are actually pretty cool deals, and they can be quite good because you're effectively getting a buy and hold, and if you do it right, you're in for a lot less money, which is really nice. So I do like the lease option strategy, but we just didn't know, like, right? And then somewhere in there, I left corporate America, so now all of a sudden I'm learning to be an entrepreneur. But I didn't really have a coach on, how to run a business. I was just just doing what I was told in real estate class,
Yeah.
which now I've learned being strong in business fundamentals is really an entirely different underlying skill set. And real estate's just a vehicle that sits on top. So if I had to do it again, I'd be like, I'd rather have learned business fundamentals first, then the real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's huge. It's something we don't even really talk about when the rich dads, the fortune builders, and then what came later. You mentioned that you're a coach. I've coached, and the coaches nowadays, or the coaches, period, a lot of them are kind of like, well, we did it, or we're doing it. We know how to do it. I'm going to teach you how to do it. That seems logical, right? What I learned when I started coaching is that the information and the how to, that's like 10% of it. The 90% over here is the fundamentals, the business fundamentals, and it's the trying to fix what you have here. And correct me if I'm wrong. Tell me what you're seeing as well. What I saw when I was coaching is I had people who are coming into my program had the mindset you had when you were leaving corporate America. They had an employee mindset, which is the mindset I had. I had the employee mindset when I got started. And so to really try to reprogram somebody to think differently, to think like an entrepreneur, to think, even books like, Traction. I remember, what's the one, and I'm trying to remember, the blue book where they talks about how to be an entrepreneur. The guy who had oh man, I can't believe I'm not remembering this book.
Is that E-Myth? I don't remember.
Yes, the E-Myth, the
Yeah, it was
entrepreneur
real
myth.
popular there for a while.
The E-Myth changed my whole world just to try to it changed my thinking. So how did you end up eventually making that transition from employee to actual, not just running around doing a bunch of deals, but to being a real business owner?
Yeah, so I'll preface the answer by saying this. I agree with you. When I coach people, I find 80% of my time has nothing to do with the deal. It's really just dealing with what's going on with the person. The deal, I mean, real estate, we've heard the phrase, real estate's not rocket science. It's not. Right. Now, when you go to be a builder, that's a little bit more like rocket science, because that can get very complicated. But in general, real estate investing, not very complicated. But so much of it, and I like the way you phrase it, it's an employee mindset. And I would agree that was definitely me. I've never thought of it in those words, but hearing you say it, I'm like, that's probably about right. And the way it shifted for me was a few years ago, I hired a business coach. Now, I wasn't even looking for a business coach, but I got to hear one speak, and I was like, yeah, I'd like to be involved with that. That sounds like it would be good. And really, what it was about is it was about speaking. And then when I listened to him speak, I was like, oh, yeah, you could join this thing where you can network with other entrepreneurs, but it wasn't real estate centric. Long story short, he became someone that coached me. And I'll never forget, we were in the middle of some challenging times building at that time, and we didn't even realize it was challenge. We thought it was a challenge, but we didn't realize how big of a challenge. We very much did not know what we didn't know. And I'll never forget my first time he coached me. I shared what was going on, and he looked at me and he's like, "You know what your problem is?" And I said, "What?" He's like, "You're too nice."
Hmm.
That was his words. You're too nice. I'm saying that the first thought was I just spent all this money and that's what he told me. But in reality, he was right. Because I was too nice, things were not happening or flowing the way they needed to flow.
Hmm.
And it wasn't about the real estate. It was you need skills as a business owner, and you need to put up boundaries, and you need to speak and conduct business in a way that's reflective of professional business, not just, hey, Frank's just a nice guy that does real estate. And so it really got me to start realizing we had to shift. And we totally shift. I used to have a staff of people, like all of that went away, and they were great people, but it was like, no, 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 we gotta like and then, we realized, and then over time, we realized, wow, we really have a little bit of a mess here to clean up. But his coaching helped me get through it, and it's still helping me get through it. Really realizing, wow. And the best way to say is I was in a room less than a month ago with some very high level entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
very high level. And I felt like the absolute smallest of tadpoles in the room. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what it felt like because the quality of the conversation was so high. And and I just sat there and I said to myself, this is what good business looks like.
Hmm.
This is what professional conversation looks like.
Yeah.
And it's refreshing, but I had to get out of real estate circles and put myself in professional business owner circles. Some of these business owners have huge companies. Some of them are small, less than 10 people.
Hmm.
But the quality of conversation was like, wow. So,
Yeah, I think that real estate specifically, it's so deal centric. It's so how many deals are you doing? What deals are you working on? It's all about the deal. Like let's do another deal. And it took me forever to realize this because we were wholesaling a ton. And that was our main business, wholesaling lease options. That was our main business forever and ever and ever. Um, but it was all about the deal. And when it becomes all about the deal, it as the business owner, I'm not even a business owner. I own a job. I'm a job owner. It for me, it was just like I don't have a business here. I was never taught how to start a business, own a business, be a business owner. Going back to Rich Dad Education or going back to just Rich Dad Poor Dad. The second book Robert Kiyosaki wrote was Cash Flow Quadrant. And you always wanted to be on the right hand side of the quadrant because that's where the
mhm.
business owner was and that's where the investor was. Over here on the left side of the quadrant is the employee. You have a job, employee, and then the S, you're self-employed, which just means you own a job. I was that S, but I was masquerading as I thought I was a B. I wasn't. A business is a set of, which I learned later, which a business is a set of systems and processes that can run mostly without you or completely without you. As a wholesaler, I was the business. And so I had to like, and I'm like you said, I'm running around doing so much stuff that I didn't have a business. And you just mentioned, Frank, that it took you, we're talking about, I want to talk about simplification here in a second, but it took you almost like going into a different circle of people to realize that. So is that what you are focusing on now? You're focusing on maybe trimming some things out that just are completely unnecessary, or how do you go from doing all these things to being a more efficient operation?
Yeah, so to lead into that, wow, just it's like I almost felt like was going down memory lane while you were sharing. And so, it is so true. And I do want to be clear. I do enjoy some real estate circles. Okay, so I don't want it to come across as a negative because right, there are some amazing real estate circles. But the reality is a lot of those are going to be more like higher level masterminds. Okay, if I'm going down to the local meetings, there are some great people there, sure. And different meetings, different levels of success, quality, whatever. But we just got to be really mindful of the circles we're going to put quality time in because time is very much it's our most precious asset. And it's too easy to be, like you said, deal centric, that's what we were. We're all about the deal. It got to a point where deals became easy.
Mm-hmm.
And we literally became a victim of our own success, literally. And I mean that in the most literal of senses. And that ended up creating a lot of problems for us that it just never really understood the risks we were taking. And we were partnered with people that, quite frankly, was the blind leading the blind in both directions.
Mm.
So imagine that. And this is what I will say as I lead into your question about simplification. How do you simplify? Well, the first step to simplification, hire a coach. Because all our big mistakes happened when I wasn't being coached. When I wasn't being coached, which was a period of about, I don't know, roughly 3 years or so, you're on top of the world or whatever. That's when all the mistakes happen. So once I got coached, I didn't really realize it at first because you're seeing all your problems now in a different light. So it feels overwhelming. But in reality, that was the beginning of simplifying,
Mm.
of just, hey, it's not about the deal. Like you said, so many circles talk about the next deal, but it's not about the deal. In fact, one of the circles I'm in now, they will flat out tell you they don't invest in deals, they invest in people.
Mm.
The deal is just something that's here today, tomorrow will be something different because there's always going to be another deal.
Yeah.
And so we realized that we needed to start cutting some fat. Well, one of the problems with real estate is you can't just stop. It's not like the stock market. You know what? Just sell the stock. We're done. Like with real estate, there's deeds, there's titles, there's conditions of properties, there's market cycle. There's so many factors. You can't just walk away. And even if you could, you still can't walk away because there's still stuff that has to be cleaned up. So it became a long cycle of let's simplify. And it took quite some time to do it, quite
Yeah.
some time.
And so, well, so yes, you gotta clean a lot of, you gotta let deals come to a natural end, a natural conclusion, whether you're selling it or even if you're holding it. Probably you're reevaluating a portfolio. Are these all properties that we even want to hold? Do we want to sell some? Do we want to sell all? Got to let these projects come to a natural conclusion. When you said that, the first thing I thought of was marketing. Last thing you want to, and I don't know if you're doing your own marketing, but the last thing you want to do is turn off your marketing. As soon as you turn your marketing off, you might be good for another month or two just by, follow up and just a natural matriculation of things. But as soon as that thing ends, it's going to take a few more months just to get that thing revved back up. So,
Yeah.
so as far as like simplification goes, Frank, do you feel like you're there? Is that still a process?
I don't know if we're ever completely there, but we are definitely much simpler, lighter ship than we were. And it's allowing us to really consider what's next and what are some pivots. Part of the simplification process wasn't just getting deals done and getting stuff off the plate. It was also letting people go.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you right now, one of the biggest baggages, and some might argue the biggest baggage, is having the wrong people in your circle. And again, going back to what I said earlier, I was too nice. In doing so, one of the things that I was told is you have people you've kept in your circle far too long. It's well documented as humans, we always believe the best in others. And so we will keep people around longer than maybe we should. And this doesn't even necessarily mean they're bad people, right? They may not even be bad people. They're just not the right people for your circle at this juncture of your life. So we had to let go of a number of relationships that, quite frankly, were not bringing any value. And we probably couldn't have brought any value to them. So, it was bi-directional. Why are we still talking, right?
Yeah.
It was a mix of the people and getting deals closed out. And now we're at a point where the load is a lot lighter and we feel more agile. The energy level comes back. But now there's that wisdom of, hey, let's not just go do another deal. Let's do something that's in total alignment with where we're ultimately trying to go, which
Yeah.
means let's get even more clear, right? Because when we get into real estate, what is everybody thinking? The buzzwords, financial freedom. And in the last few years, what are we hearing? Generational wealth. Everyone says that. And I've asked people that I've coached, what's generational wealth? And it's amazing. It's like, I don't even know it, but it sounds good. I want to make sure my grandkids are taken care of. Okay, well, what about your current kids? Better yet, what about you?
There's no doubt. Well, Frank, you're coaching people, how do you teach or coach others to not fall into the same kind of trap that I would venture to say almost every new real estate investor is going to fall into? Because in the beginning, it is you. In the beginning, you have to work. You've got to hustle. And well, I guess you don't have to. I started with hardly anything. I had to go out there and hustle and hang bandit signs in the middle of the night and door knock, which was way less scarier 12 years ago than it is today. Get on Craigslist, which was a real thing 12 years ago. Probably not so much anymore. But I had to go out and make the phone calls, the cold calls. I had to go out and just basically hustle for everything and work. How do you coach someone? And obviously, everyone's going to be in a different position financially, emotionally, stage of life, whatever it might be. But Frank, how would you coach someone who approached you and wanted to get started in real estate? How would you get them to not fall into the same kind of maybe traps that you did?
Great question. So many people start the same way, right? I want to be a wholesaler. I want to be a fix and flip. And what is it? I usually want to graduate from wholesale to fix and flip. Like that's the most common, or I want to just buy and hold. I don't want to work that hard. I want cash flow, right? And what I've learned is all that's fine and good, but what I like to do is talk to people first about, well, what's your goal? Like, what do you actually want? Again, going back to what is your purpose? What is your vision? What is it you really want? Not up here, because what everyone wants up here is more or less the same. More money, generational wealth, blah, 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 blah. And all that's fine and good. But down here in the core of your soul, what do you want? I'll give you an example. Back in the clubhouse days, back when we were all hanging out on Clubhouse for hours on end.
For that 2 month blip of time.
That's right. That's right. It was a very insightful time. But there was a lady who came on one of these rooms and she said, I want generational wealth or something to that effect. And her path was, I want to build properties to do Airbnb, short-term rentals with. And so I remember saying, okay, ma'am, how many houses have you built? Well, none. Okay. Have you remodeled anything? No. Have you done any short-term rentals? No. Have you rented anything? No. Okay. Let's talk, man. Because what you just said is I want to do two independent full-time career paths to create generational wealth. And so we broke it down. And at the end of the day, all she wanted was, I just want to make sure I have enough passive income to pay my bills and live a peaceful life retired. She didn't even need to travel the world or anything like that. And it was like, so really all you really need is to learn how to buy a few doors that create money so that when you retire, you have enough to pay the bills, maybe take a vacation or two, and you're good. Yeah, that's all I need. A totally different world from new construction to Airbnb. And it was like, there's people out there, and we know this. There's a lot of people that get into fix and flip, and they hate it.
Yeah.
They hate it. In fact,
Wow.
it's most people get into it, they don't last. They hate it. And it's because we don't take the time up front to figure out, yeah, you liked the commercial. It sounded good, the pictures of the car and the plane and the beach and whatever. But is it in alignment with who you are and what you're about? Because if it's not, you might even get good at it. You might even get great at it. But if you hate it, who cares? There's people out there, and they're well documented, that were amazing successes at careers, and they hated it. In fact, some have taken their life, well documented. So we got to get people, do what's in alignment with what you're about at this point in time. You might evolve into something else, right? We all evolve. But today, let's do what's in alignment. So now we can take advantage of your strengths that are available to you right now.
You know, Frank, that lady that you referenced, I mean, she probably saw a Facebook ad, or she might have been in another clubhouse room where everyone was talking that particular thing up. And it just put in her mind that this is the way. And the truth is, which you know, because you've done it, and I know because I've done it, the truth is you can make money dozens of different ways in real estate. There's so many different routes to go. I remember that very first, the trainer I went to, Rich Dad, that first seminar I went to, he spoke for 3 days, and I was in a room, and he would not stop talking about mobile home parks. This is back in 2012. I got it put in my mind that mobile home parks, that's the key to wealth. That's the key to long-term wealth. You got to have a mobile home park one day. I really believed that for a long time. I believed that so much, Frank, that I went out in 2016 and bought a mobile home park. I had that belief for that long. It didn't, but my point is, there's so many different ways, so many different routes, so many different avenues in real estate. And the most successful ones I see, they pick one route, they master that route. It like you said, they identify with it. It matches the end result, matches what their goals are for their life, their financial goals, their emotional goals, their time goals, all these things. And just a simple conversation, like you alluded to in the very beginning, will probably prevent someone from taking a path that's just completely unnecessary.
Yeah, real estate's very much a shiny penny syndrome type of environment, and there's lots of pennies, and some of them masquerade as, $2 coins or whatever the latest coin is, or Bitcoin. How about that? So, so you get all these different avenues, and they all sound good, but in reality, each of these avenues can be a full-time career path that takes years to master. And so I think focus is key. Focus is key, but it's hard because you'll hear people say, well, you need to know multiple exit strategies. Well, that's true over time, but at the beginning, that can work against you. But that was how I worked. My philosophy now is I don't really care what exit strategy you like. Let's pick the one that's in alignment with you. But here's the thing, regardless of what exit strategy you want to learn, you better first learn how to buy. Because really, that's the game to master. Because if you master the acquisition game, now all the different strategies become available to you.
For sure. Well, Frank, I want to respect your time. I know you're up against the clock. I really do appreciate you coming on the show and just kind of offering your, 15 years of experience to our listeners. I really appreciate that. If someone wanted to get in touch with you or check out what you're doing, how can they do that?
Yeah, so our email is info@workingwithhouses.com, info@workingwithhouses.com. We love phone calls. We're kind of old school, 678-408-2228, or you could text us at that number. But I'm also on all the main social media channels. I'm not on X yet. I don't know. I don't know. They have that much to tweet about, but so maybe we'll go back. But Facebook, IG, LinkedIn, even a little bit of TikTok. So that's fun. And I also got a podcast as well called What Worked for You. So if you reach out to me on that as well. So yeah, I'm easy to find and love to hear from people.
Perfect. Frank, thank you so much. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in for this week. See you next time.